Welcome everyone, Akasha here. Welcome to Bliss Life Global Healing Series. I'm excited to continue this exploration of this massive soul purpose awakening that we're in the middle of. We're diving into the deeper meaning of what's actually happening, looking under the drama and the story and the diseases and everything else, and really unplugging so that we can rise out of that and see a new perspective. And we're bringing you another new perspective today, because these secrets and insights to this grand transformation, this enormous societal reset that's been prophesized and talked about for so long, and some of us have been going, yes, yes, please, finally it's here. But it is a mess. It's a chaotic mess. So we're like, we didn't know how it was going to happen. We just knew it was going to happen. So now we get this awesome opportunity to be inside this mega crisis, watching everything deconstruct, including our lives and our beliefs and everything else. And we get to go in and say, hey, what's really going on? Because this is a massive opportunity. So today I'm super excited to invite to join us, Jenny Schiltz. I don't know if I'm saying that right. Schiltz. And Schiltz, okay. And we're going to be talking about the Galactic Council of Light. She's going to bring some interesting guidance. So we're going to learn today what the Galactic Council of Light has shared about this time they're calling the Great Shakeup and how to navigate it. So let's learn a little bit about Jenny. She's a quantum multidimensional healer and an intuitive guide, and she works with the body's energies to see where there's dysfunction and then release it. She teaches people how to ease their energetic field, create healthy boundaries, and open to their own highest aspect and abilities. As a child, she could see and communicate with other beings and elementals. I bet a lot of you listening are the same. This ability was fostered and guided by her grandfather. He passed when she was 8, and in her attempts to find others to share this beautiful gift with, she was met with fear and disbelief. Then she shut down her abilities, like so many of us. And in 2005, her life took a new direction when she was hit by a drunk driver, and it led to 3 major spinal surgeries. This catastrophe started her incredible healing journey. She opened back up to the angels, guides, galactic beings, ascended masters, and nature spirits, but most importantly to herself. They taught her how to heal, not only physically, but to heal the inner wounds and trauma from this and other incarnations. Yes! The healing techniques and understandings that the angels, masters, guides, and galactic beings and elementals taught her are what she shares with clients, along with her training as a quantum energy healer, shamanic practitioner, and Reiki master. So welcome, Jenny. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really, really excited to be here to share this information.
Yes. So I'm excited. Let us, that was such a great introduction, because we got to see who you are now, what you're doing now, like that little tip of the iceberg,
Yeah.
but this big thing, right? That this training or this, like going to the gym that we've all done in our lives to get ready for this moment.
Yeah.
So what else? Tell us a little bit more about that journey and why you started to work with people and bring this out.
I was what you would call a reluctant, reluctant psychic, a reluctant healer, because it took so much for me to step into this role. I literally spent years in bed. I mean, years in bed between the car accident and the surgeries, and I had fibromyalgia, and it was just one thing after another. And I just felt like life was passing me by. And then I had an experience where I was in my kitchen, and all of a sudden I see like a blue eyeball, and I'm like, what is that? And it pulls further away. Now this time I'm not really seeing or hearing or any of this stuff. And all of a sudden I realized that the blue eyeball was my grandfather. And it goes to the chair he would always sit in. And he's like, enough is enough. He's like, it's time. I mean, he really gave me what's for, right? and he's like, that's it. He's like, it's time. You've got to open back up. You can't allow the fear to keep you bound anymore. And I didn't really get to ask a lot of questions, but the one question I asked him, I said, well, you were also one who told me not to tell people. And he said, yeah, he said, but times have changed. And he's like, and you're safe. And boom, he was gone. And I'm sitting there like, what just happened? But I also knew how huge the moment was. And I knew that, here I was like this 9-year-old kid, trying so hard to connect to my parents and my sister. And there was just no one to connect to. And so I had literally just shut everything down. I mean, hard, like iron door hard. Because, my dad had said to me before, he's like, you're going to be in a straitjacket. He's like, you have to stop. And then to compound things, one of my sister's best friends, her mom was literally like carried off into a mental institution in front of us because she spoke to angels. So now you could see how that just compounded. And so why that iron door was so important for me. It's
Wow.
what I felt kept me safe. And I just pretended to be normal. But what that did, it was such a huge disconnect from myself. My body was always screaming. Like I can't remember a time, even from that young age, that I wasn't in pain. Like there was always just this, constant angst in the body because there was no energy really flowing through. There was no connection that I really could discern. And so it was like I was living a life with a mask. So I had the car accident, and it was a good one. It was a really good car accident. And I got put into a nursing home. And so it was right after one of the surgeries. And at the time, they had put me on some meds that, technically had hallucinogenic properties, but I can remember looking at myself in the bed. I had all my past animals around me. They were like puppy pile, like working on me, healing me. And I'm walking around this nursing home, and I was working with Archangel Michael and Mother Mary, and they were saying, it's your choice. You can go or you can stay. But if you stay, then what we need from you is to open back up. Now, I remember, saying to my husband at the time, this happened. And he'd say, hon, you were on a lot of drugs, a whole lot of drugs. You also had an infection. And I did. They had to get me to a different nursing home because the infection, there was a chance it was going to go to the brain. So, I mean, it was really a precarious time. I was right on that line between going and staying. And so I kind of allowed the world to say that didn't happen. And so then it was, I guess, 3 years later, my grandfather right here going, cut it out. Like, stop it. So that whole entire day after seeing my grandfather, I cried. I mean, cried and cried. And it was just like torrents because I think I was so afraid. Like, what would happen? I had 3 children, 4 with one that we had taken on as a teenager. What would happen with them if I opened up? What would happen with my marriage if I opened up? It was all these things of, are people going to think I'm crazy? And what if my entire world crumbles because I open up to who I really am, which is different than who I was at that moment? So the fear was really, really extreme. My husband comes home from work. He sees me. My eyes are all swollen. He goes, what's going on? And I tell him what happened, and he's sitting there like, okay. And I'm like, I'm going forward. And he said, okay, what does this mean? And I said, I don't know. And he said, will you still love me? I said, yeah, I'm still going to love you. And he said, well, we're still going to be married. Yes. And he goes, then what's the problem? And whenever I think of that, I always tear up because it was the best gift I think I've ever received in my entire life. And we just celebrated 26 years.
Oh my.
And I mean, so it's just that acceptance. And it was like this huge, I'm okay. I'm safe in this lifetime. Not only am I still loved, but I'm accepted, and I can really and truthfully walk in what I was meant to do. So from that time, I was still really recovering from surgeries, and because I had had 3 overall, and it was a lot. It was a lot. I mean, with one of the surgeries, they told my husband, they said, well, we got our toes moving. So, I mean, it was significant damage that had been done, but I climb mountains now. I live in Colorado and we climb mountains all the time. And that is through literally the healing light that I started to bring into my body and pulling out the density. So I spent the next, I'd say, couple of years really working with the angels and starting to understand. Prior to that, you couldn't have told me what an ascended master was. I had no idea. But I started working with them and learning, and I just, it was such an amazing, amazing time for me. So then I started to channel, and I started a blog. And then I think I blogged for 2 years before I even would agree to see my first client. And even then I was reluctant. Like, I don't know if this is right for me. I mean, because it was that fear of like, well, what will happen? And now here I am all these years later, and I'm so glad that I decided not to get in my own way,
Yes.
because everything was pushing me towards this. The only one that was kind of holding me back was literally me, so now here I am. And, when I found shamanism and when I started learning that, it was literally everything that the angels had taught me when I was in bed. Different words, same exact thing. Like, I knew how to do a soul retrieval before I was ever taught to do a soul retrieval, because they had me journeying and finding soul pieces and bringing myself home. And so shamanism felt very just home. It felt really good. Like, I finally have words for this stuff. And then after that, I moved more into the quantum realm and working with just in that quantum field. And what does that mean? And going through different people's layers and understanding the effects of what we call past lives that are happening simultaneously, or what is it, there could be things that are off world. I mean, there's a lot. You just don't know what you're going to find with a client and what their needs are. And so the way that I run my practice is I always joke and say I'm a very good employee, because I get in and I just listen and I see and I do what I'm told, and working with a really, really good team. And so they're always saying, okay, now look here. I'll say, okay, where next? And then I go to the next spot. And so it's just been this really, really awesome journey. Originally, I was working with just the Ascended Masters, and then the Galactic Council of Light came in, and oh gosh, their frequency was so high that when I'd work with them and then I'd nod off. And I mean, so many times I would nod off, like just sitting up, wake up, there's drool, and I'm wiping that away, because I mean, they would knock me out so that my body could then frequency adjust so that I could hear them better and I could stay in longer. And it was really this neat thing. And so now I work with them often, and I bring in a lot of the information about what's happening now and ways to navigate it, because this time is really something.
It's something. It is something. It's so funny because, there's people who were clueless that anything was going to happen, right? And then there's those of us who've been waiting and wanting and working towards it and getting ready, and doing our work and all that. And yet there's just no way to know. I love your story because it's parallel to so many people, right? So many people who we were alive and awake and tuned in when we were little, and then something shuts you down. And of course, as the work I do is similar, and shamanism is to me also that whole mystery school and shamanism, those two things together, it just like brings everything into a place. But then you go through your shutdown, and you're supposed to, and you go through all of your struggles like you did, and you're supposed to, but we think that we've done something wrong or we're being punished, right? And all of these things. And so everyone has an opportunity to move through any challenge like you did, and to find the light, find the guidance, that whole idea of like, no, we're shutting all the doors, keep going this way, until you said, look, I have to be myself. And it's really a beautiful thing that you're your husband and you have
Yeah.
such a strong bond that
Yeah.
didn't separate you, because it does separate a
It
lot of
does.
people.
It
Yeah.
does. Absolutely. So the fear I felt about that, that was real.
Oh
You know,
yeah.
that thought of like, I could be upending my marriage, my children. I could be, you know, I had these 4 little lives that I was in, you know, in like care of, and what would it do?
Yeah.
You know, and when I was going through that process, I asked my team, I was like, it seems like everything's about me right now. And it really was. It was about me figuring out boundaries and figuring out what I wanted. And I said, am I a narcissist? And they said, narcissists wouldn't ask that question.
Yeah.
But it was that really necessary time where I was like, I had to really create very strong boundaries,
Mhm.
and kind of see where I didn't have any before, because
Yes.
Lord knows I didn't. And just going through that upheaval, even with the kids, because the kids would be like, we don't like this new person. I mean,
Yeah.
they were all teenagers at the time, except for my little one. So they were pretty vocal about, we don't like you. But the funny part is like all 3 of my older girls had babies in 2020.
Oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, like instant grandmother. Yeah, 2 in January, 1 in May. And now that they're going through their own cycles with their own mates, I've had them say to me, thank you so much for showing us the importance of putting yourself first,
Yeah.
because, you know, like they will fight for their time, you know, even if it's just a shower,
Oh
you
yeah.
know, because as breastfeeding moms, it's like sometimes that is like your Shangri-La of the day.
It is.
But they fight for it. And they're like, no, because I know that if I get my time, I'm a better mom.
Yeah.
And so to have that validation all these years for them going, thank you. Thank you for teaching us that. I'm like, whoo, all that stuff you put me through was worth it.
Yes, I know. Well, it's amazing to watch how all different, our children and our parents and all the
Mhm.
different people in our lives, how they're handling this, what they're going through,
Yeah.
what they learned that they didn't want to look at, and because my kids will still
Yeah.
go, Mom, when they want something, like
Uh-huh.
something's going, but otherwise they're like, I don't know, Mom. I'm not sure that I think about that anymore, or believe that. And like, yeah, okay. Like, you just wait for the next crisis in your life, and then you'll be going,
Right.
what's this all about, Mom? But, like anyone else, like you're even with, clients and loved ones, you can't force your journey on it.
Yeah.
And the other thing I like you touched on was, that fear is so tangible for so many people right now, even
Yeah.
light workers and healers that have been doing even some form of it for a while.
Yeah.
That full on letting go to accept yourself. Who will hate me? Will I be ridiculed? Will I be burned at the stake? Will I be beheaded? Will I be outcast? Those
Yes.
are very real experiences, both in our other lives as well as in this life. We can see, I mean, I was disowned,
Yeah.
and so,
Yeah.
and yet it's no longer an option right now. And
Yeah.
so you may or may not, nobody likes it when you change the people
Yeah.
close to you, right? It's
Yeah.
not a good idea to make that. That's usually the barrier to people accepting and moving into their power,
Hmm.
like you did, right? But they won't like it. But what
Yeah.
will they think? And you've got to get rid of those, or you're just going to be dragged through the mud right now.
Yes.
And so then, as you did this process and begin to work with not only the angels and the other things, but so tell us a little more about the information that you have coming through now,
Yeah.
but also that I think it would be good for some people to understand your process of trusting this communication that started to happen, because a
That
lot of
was
people are
hard.
doing this. Yeah.
That was really hard. And I would say I was exceptionally skeptical. And there was just things that I was like, okay, well, what is the answer to this? And it was things that were able to be proved, even if it was something 2 months coming down. They would say, this is what is going to happen. So it was a long process. I can't say that I jumped into it full bore and completely trusted, because I think I really was kind of scared I was crazy. I mean, I truly had that thought that, what if I'm making all this up? And, so then it was just this constant, I mean, gosh, if I could tell you just how much they held my hand and we're like, we understand. This is what, you're worried about this, but understand this. And here's another piece of proof. And here's another piece. But at the end of the day, it wasn't them I distrusted. It was me. Because who am I? I mean, I'm just me, I'm just this typical kid born in Maryland and, had a family and a farm and a couple kids, and who am I? So once I finally realized, like, my distrust was not of them per se, but more of my own worthiness issues, that changed things.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I remember talking to Mother Mary going, "Oh, who am I? Like, why me?" And they're like, "What don't you understand? Why not you?" And then they would go, "You agreed to this." And then they would flash me back to the nursing home walking around where I was. I absolutely agreed. So, and they're saying, and not to mention the fact that there was a soul plan prior,
Yeah.
obviously, but it took a long time for me to live up to it.
Yeah. Again, not uncommon.
Yeah.
And really important not to beat yourself up about.
Yeah. So once I started going, why not me? And I started looking at others. I do this now. I think Wayne Dyer for me was very important. And I used to look at Wayne Dyer and go, if he can do this, why can't I? If this person can do this, why can't I? And so what it's done is it's created, like, if I see where somebody has created something or done something amazing, or even if it's written a book about something, or I get so excited because I'm like, if you can do it, so can I. And it's just instant permission, if that makes sense, to where it's like you realize you're not necessarily inventing the wheel. It's all here for you.
Yeah.
You just have to bring it in and believe that you can do it.
Yeah.
And that the possibilities, they're there for you. They're there. They're just streams of information, timelines, things like that you can tap into. But if you think to yourself that you can't, you won't.
Yeah.
So for me, that was the biggest thing. Raising the vibration was really important to make sure that I wasn't messing with anything lower.
Or misinterpreting or intending, trying to
Yeah.
create something from, we talk about that a lot in my work, right? That if you go into, a client just asked me today, she's been a vegetarian, but she feels called to eat meat, some fish sometimes. Then she goes through all this struggle and pain, right? And I said, she goes, is it right or wrong? Tell me if I should eat fish. I said, it's not about me telling you what to do. It's about you asking what's optimal for you in this moment.
Right.
And then letting go of all those thoughts and beliefs.
All the belief
you it's
systems.
right or wrong, or wrong, until you can get to a higher state and align with a peaceful truth, not one driven by ego and guilt, right? Yeah.
Right. That's exactly it. And that's a journey.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big part of it, to get to the point where you can say, you know what? I'm going to trust me 100%. I'm going to communicate with this body and trust it and listen to what it needs 100%, regardless of anyone else's belief system. And as soon as you begin to do that, there's like this synchronicity that comes into the body. And it's almost as if the body goes, oh, thank freaking God. Like, finally, you're listening.
Yeah.
Like, thank you. Because I mean, I did the whole vegetarian thing, and they kept saying to me, you need to eat meat. And I kept saying, no, raising my vibration. And then I fell down the stairs because I kept having dizzy spells. I fell down the stairs and I'm laying on the floor down there going, okay, please tell me I didn't really mess up my fusion. And I just see my guide stand over me and goes, are you done? Are you ready to feed your body properly? And so I tell my husband this. He goes, well, maybe you need to go get checked out. My iron was so low, I had to go for 3 iron transfusions. And all the time they're saying, eat meat. Like, you're like killing your body here because you don't have enough iron. And I'm going, but I have to raise my vibration, and that belief system really could have injured me. So I had to let it go. I had to deal with what it is that I need. And so now I just flow.
Yeah.
If I want, some salmon, I'm going to have salmon. If I want nothing but veggies, I'm just going to have veggies. And so that peace, that acceptance of self, it's pretty big.
It's
pretty big.
Yeah. Well, and it affects every area of your life. When you actually get to these higher states and you realize that the car you drive, the house you chose, where you live, all of this stuff was determined by these beliefs or these attachments to what other people think. You've never really made a free choice, or very rarely.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you start looking and going, oh my gosh. Like, whoa, how much did I do? Because I thought, well, that will look appropriate.
Yeah.
Instead of what is it that you really want?
Yeah. And what is it that you need personally for you at this time is different than what other people need at this time. And so that's why unplugging, we talked about Wayne Dyer, and one of my favorite things he said was a very polite and gracious way of saying, stop giving the shit about what anybody else thinks, as he would say, you need to unhook from the good opinion of others.
Such a beautiful way to put it.
Isn't it? It's so elegant, and you just have to, and it doesn't mean you don't care, and you do go through that phase.
Yeah.
So learning to trust does take a while, and it's phases like that.
Yeah.
What about when you would see the patterns that this would uncover? Okay, I'm going to trust, I'm going to step in, I'm going to be a psychic, I'm going to talk to angels, whatever. And then to me, that usually turns into a big, bright, shiny light that starts showing you those patterns and beliefs that are fighting that, or that have been keeping you from that.
Yeah, absolutely. For me, it was worthiness. That was the biggest thing. And even now and then it still comes up, and I'm like, okay. And I kind of talk to it like it's 5, like, it's all right. We're good. We're like this moment. And I have to drill it down to this moment right now, right here. Look how perfect all this is. And once I do that, then it just seems to get rid of some of that, that feeling of like, oh, I don't know if I can do this. And I'm nervous, and I'm, that angst that can come in as you really start to step into these roles. And at the same time, it's understanding that these are also roles.
Yeah, exactly. Right. And the beliefs that you structure to step into doing your gifts isn't the one right thing either, right?
It's not
the one thing for you now. Like you said, you evolved, right? It was angels, master teachers, and then angels, and then the Galactic Council came in.
Yeah.
And again, it's like we're not running to a goal.
Right.
We're in a flow. And so, you keep doing your work, and then suddenly pop, and you don't know when the little pop's going to happen, right?
You
and then,
don't.
Boop. Yeah.
And then it's another shift, and you learn something new, and then it changes you. And I think one of the most important things I had to let go of was what I learned yesterday. As my information and understanding and knowledge deepens, what I learned is no longer on point always. And being okay with that and going, I see how, it's like understanding math. When you're in first grade, you're just beginning to kind of count change and going, okay, 10 pennies equals 10. But, eventually you get into calculus, and I can't judge if I'm at calculus back and go, that first grader didn't know what she was doing. You can't do that. You have to see how it's this progression and allow yourself to change, because where we get in trouble is when we double down on a belief. But if I change that means I was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. Big old ego.
Right. And so it's allowing yourself to shift, allowing yourself to change. And right now, this time period is literally all about, can you unlayer yourself? Can you see through your belief systems? And through the belief systems, man, we talk about, as you were saying, like family, what the belief systems that come in from family, or the belief systems where we're like, oh, what will people think of me? But there's also belief systems that come in from the land you live on.
Yeah.
belief systems that come in through the government, the healthcare system, your schooling, religion. These are all like tangled on top of you. Last June, 2019, I didn't go anywhere, 2020. But 2019, I was flying back from a sacred journey I had led in England, and I hit over New York, and I think it was out by that continental shelf. I was half asleep, and all of a sudden it was like something just slammed in my body. And I was like, what was that? And they said, you just reattached to the American grid. And it was interesting. So a part of me just sat back and observed, but all of a sudden my mind started going to, okay, when I get home, I have to make this and I have to do this and I have to do this. And it was like this to-do list started going, and I'm like, holy cow. You know, that part of the American grid is this nonstop do. Have you had your 2.5 kids? Are you in your house with the white picket fence? And what have you made of yourself?
Yes. And what did you do for me today?
Right. And so that was such an interesting, I didn't realize how strong it was before I literally felt myself attaching to that grid again and going, I don't like this.
I live in Mexico on the beach, so believe me, I unplugged from that, and we watch. Oh my.
Yes, absolutely. And you know, and what's interesting is because I didn't realize how strong it was, I hadn't unplugged.
Yeah.
Until it like slammed me. I'm like, no, I don't like this. I see you now. I know what you are, and no. Yeah. I'm not playing this game. I'm not plugging into that anymore. I'm literally removing my energy from it.
Yeah.
But sometimes you have to see. You know,
yeah, you have to experience that because you left. You're right. You left the grid, and you're still connected to it a little bit because you lived there and
absolutely,
right? But you weren't just in another country. You were in sacred space.
Huge.
And when you do
space.
that, I know I lead trips in Egypt and all this, right?
Yeah.
When you do that, it's like you went off planet.
It is.
And then you came back. Yeah.
Yes. That's a fantastic way to put it.
Yeah.
You know, especially when you spend 2 to 3 weeks surrounded by people who are on similar wavelength.
Yeah.
I mean, that is the biggest. It's so much fun. It's the biggest gift. And so 2020 for me has been difficult. I was supposed to do 2 more journeys this year and we didn't get to go, but
I know the feeling.
Holding space for 2021. So all right. So let's talk about this.
Yes,
time.
I was going to say, so let's hear some more goodies about now.
I could just talk your ear off. So one of the things that they're saying is we are in this time period, and it really is between now, I would say really end of August to December. And they're calling it the Great Shakeup. And I was working with one of the masters and I said, I don't really understand. And he shows me what he called a fish box, right? But it was actually an aquarium. And I was laughing. It was like fish box. And he says, is it clean? And the walls were clean. The water was sparkling. I said, yes. And he goes, no, it's not. And on the bottom, there was like this much muck, right? And he said, start stirring it. And the water gets ooky and there's stuff floating in it and it's just all this stuff. And he goes, is it clean now? And I said, no. And he said, if you stir yourself and it's clean, then it's clean. But until you stir yourself, you can pretend it's clean. I said, but it's not. He said, there's all this underneath, right? And he said, so collectively, if we want to look at it collectively, it's like we're in this giant aquarium, if you will, that is literally being stirred. So there's the collective aquarium, and then we have our own personal aquarium. And this doesn't look pretty. It doesn't feel good. It's chaotic. It can be scary. It can be all of these things that we're experiencing. It can be the absolute crumble of things. But it's understanding that it's necessary because everything was on the bottom and it was still, right? It was kind of like, just not really. And the filter's going in that aquarium, it's clearing it out, but it cannot clean out what it can't reach. And We've got a dog going here. Did you hear that?
Yes, he agrees. He's like,
Yes,
oh,
he's
yeah,
like, absolutely. He's
you
like,
got
"Arr, absolutely.
it.
Um, Unfortunately, she feels the need to be in here all the time. Let me let her out. Excuse me.
I love it when the animals come. Last time in the energy medicine, I was interviewing someone and the cat had to come and was going across and rubbing in his face and making all these beautiful things. So thank you, whatever your name is.
Forgive me.
What's her name?
Copper.
Copper. Thank you, Copper.
Yes. Oh, copper's too much.
Oh my gosh, do you want to know something? That's really intriguing. Copper is a scientifically proven cure for COVID-19. If you take a copper supplement, I know
Interesting.
the doctor and research scientists who did it, and they're going through their third set of trials, and it's proven over and over. You just take it's a FDA approved supplement. You can just buy it.
Yeah.
You just take one a day, and it cannot attach to your cells. And they're giving it to people who are continually exposed. So, thank you, Copper.
Wow. Yeah. Because look what it just brought forth. Absolutely.
Yeah,
How amazing is that?
yeah.
So, so we're looking at our collective and our individual aquariums. And, what they said to me, they said the biggest thing, particularly when we're looking at the collective aquarium, is not to jump in. And they showed me this image of myself. I think that they think they're funny, and they are, because I laugh a lot, of myself jumping in and going, hey, no, here's what you need to do, get out of the aquarium, and getting smacked by a piece of debris. And, they're like, we don't want you to do that. And I'm like, okay. And they said, what we want you to do is when somebody has really kind of worked their way up to the top of the aquarium and they're climbing out, give them a handout. But don't jump in. Don't jump in, because this time period is so important as we shift into the energies of 2021. And it's almost as if this is the time that everything is amplified. Everything we do good, everything that we do that's not so good, any of our egoic stuff, everything is amplified. And while that's not fun, it's so important. And it's very much so that, if you think about it, if we do something, we may not see the repercussions of the actions may not come in for a good space of time. And it's too long for us to put the two together. Wow, because I did this just happened. The space has been too long. Well, now the space is right there. It is right there. And it's important, because that way we can see, we can see what it is that, if I have an attitude in the house, how does it shift every single person in that house? It's instant. And that allows me to go, wow, okay, let me observe that. Let me work through it. And now I need to see the root of it. And now I can shift it. And that's the whole purpose, so that we can really take full responsibility of what it is that we're doing, what we're thinking, what we're saying. And it's massive. It's massive. And it's not easy. It's exhausting, but really important.
Yeah. Well, and these are the little pieces, the steps we've been taking, right, through the new age stuff.
Yeah.
And, meditate and think positive, and, do the affirmations all the way into
Yeah.
the, deeper stuff, and ayahuasca, and, everything just going, how can I find more? Because that's what we're doing. We're learning to master our energies and our emotions, understand, oh, wait a minute. I was all high as a kite, feeling great, all connected to peace, walked out of my meditation room, talked to my kids, and now I'm like, right? Yeah. And so that's such a great gift. I always tell my clients, say, thank you. Don't go, oh, no, I can't believe I'm being there. Be like, oh, I didn't know you were hiding.
Oh, that's exactly it.
Yeah.
That's
and
exactly it.
So good, the stirring up idea, right? Because we saw that 4 years ago. We saw this ugly underbelly, and we've been seeing it for a while now, these things stirring up, and looking at neighbors going, I didn't know that this racism or this hatred or this violence or this anger or this confusion. And we know, because we work with people, we see this inside of individual people. But that collective goo you're talking about Yeah.
It's yucky.
It's stir it up, stir it up, stir it up. Yeah. And then
Yeah.
don't get in.
Yeah.
I love that. Don't get in. It's like standing watching. Well, we just threw a bunch of piranhas in there and
Right.
some toxic waste. Come on down. And then you jump in because it's a polite thing to do.
Right.
Right?
Got to
It's
save
what
people.
you're welcome to do. Yes. What we would
Right.
say is I used to live in Minnesota, and when it was a blizzard and you saw someone in a ditch, they told you don't stop and try to help them out of the ditch, or you'll be in the ditch too and you'll both die.
Yes.
You go
Yeah.
home, or now you have a cell phone, and you call help. But
Right.
it's the same thing. I use that. Like, if you get in the ditch with them, you know better. You can't help
Right.
them. You're
You
both
can't.
drowning in it, the
That's
toxic waste, right?
absolutely correct.
Yeah.
It's absolutely
Fantastic.
correct. So this is really our time to see our programming. What is our instant reaction? Because that's like that, whether it's anger at something or frustration at something, this is your time to observe it and kind of understand that just because it's your belief doesn't necessarily mean it's the only one or that it's even the right one. That they're really, for each person, they have their own definition of what their true north is, and allowing everyone in your world to have their own true north, even if you're looking at it going, that's actually not north. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Allow them to have it because they have honed in on me. And as a mom of 4 girls, they have honed in on me that softer lessons equal longer lessons. So I'm wanting to protect them, save them, coach them, whatever these words are, make life a little bit easier. But in doing that, am I making it so that I just paid that bill for you. But now, 2 months later, you didn't learn that lesson. So you repeated the same behaviors, going out to eat, doing it, whatever it is that you were doing. And now you need money again. But now it's twice the amount. And so that was the example they were giving me. And they're saying, you're wanting to help, but sometimes the best thing we can do for people is to step back and let them help themselves. And, they actually, this summer, they hit that home really, really well. There was a butterfly and one of its wings was just shredded, right? And I'm like, oh. And so one of my daughters is a big plant and bug person, right? So she's getting onto her Facebook group. She took a picture and they were like, there's not much you can do. It's not going to be able to fly. A cat's going to get it. You should probably put it out of its misery. And that was the basic consensus. And I'm going, I don't know. I'm just going to put it in this plant and I'm going to give it a piece of fruit. And I just kind of let it be. Well, what do you know? A week later, you see the same butterfly flying around. I don't know how it was flying, wings still shredded. Well, then this summer we did bird feeders and we did, we didn't plant this, but this happened, like a whole sunflower thing in our backyard. And we had more birds than you would ever imagine. Well, here comes a cat like Houdini, like jumps up like it literally shifted dimensions to get this bird. I don't even know how it could have done it. And it snatches this bird and I jump up and I go and I grab it and I'm like telling the cat, I'm like, go. And I grab the bird and I'm looking at it and I'm scanning it and I'm like, oh, the back is bad. Like, it had puncture marks, but the back was really bad. And so I'm like, well, I'm just going to sit here. I'm going to hold you. I'm going to keep you safe and whatever happens, happens. And this little bird, he's gaping, and I'm kind of going, okay, what's he going to do? 45 minutes, I hold this little thing. And I had to get up to do something. We're having a cookout, a whole bunch of people over. And I look at one of my friends and I'm like, can you give him Reiki, give this little bird Reiki. I've got stuff to do. Well, she takes the bird pops up, hops on her finger, looks at her, tweets and flies away. And I'm like, and it shocked everybody because so many people at the cookout were saying, oh, the bird's going to die. You should probably put it out of its misery. Like, it's in pain. What are you doing? Why are you holding it? Well, I guess it was maybe 3 weeks later. I'm sitting outside. I'm getting ready to meditate when all of a sudden underneath our back porch, here comes this little bird and sits on the back of a chair. And he looks at me and he tweets a couple times. And I said, you're welcome. And then it flies off. And so I was like, that's really interesting. I go into meditation and in full conversation, and they said, do you see? People thought they were being kind by saying, put it out of its misery, stop its suffering. Yet, if any of us had stopped its suffering, we would have also taken away the opportunity for it to heal and grow.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so while we're not snuffing people out, it's not that far, but there's a lot of correlation there. How many times are we rescuing somebody, saving somebody? But it was in their catastrophe that they could grow and they can heal so that there isn't another catastrophe.
Yeah.
And it's very much, can we be comfortable with other people being uncomfortable?
Yeah. And that's a very good question, because we're literally conditioned to not do that, or
Yeah.
we're not good people. Right?
Right.
And we're conditioned to be a good person and be responsible and get your job and blah, blah, blah. And, behave appropriately. But somewhere in our conditioning, taking that right away, for choosing when it's in certain circumstances. And you're really seeing that right now in the crumbling of institutions in society. They start out saying, well, there's not enough masks, so let's not tell anyone they need a mask. And then they won't, then later, but you need a map. But you said we didn't. Well, we didn't want to tell you because, or whatever the version is.
Right.
It's been layered. Your government, your church, your family, your best friend, all of these things, instead of us being together in a place where we're like, wow, when someone tells me my life is falling apart, I say, congratulations.
Good. I do the same thing. Or like when somebody says, I'm so sick of my life. Fantastic.
Exactly. Now we can do some
moment of shift.
right?
Right. Because until you're tired of yourself.
Yeah. You're going to put up with it. Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's amazing some of the things that we put up with. So I want people to allow themselves to be triggered. And again, not fun, but allowing yourself to be triggered, to feel things you don't want to feel, is really important. It's how we see our own personal muck. Now, there's a caveat to that, and I had a really interesting experience recently. I posted something on Facebook that I didn't think was antagonistic. Boy, was I wrong. And somebody got on there and just launched into me, and I'm like, whoa. But I'm still kind of like, okay, I'm just not entertaining this. I'm not responding. Just not. But the next day I woke up and my head hurt so bad. It was horrible. And I'm kind of going, I know I'm not dehydrated. And I'm like, well, we've had fires in Colorado. It's very possible I sleep with the window open. It's very possible that I have a sinus headache or something like that. But then I noticed that I was going through Facebook and I'm just scrolling. And if somebody had something I liked, instead of going, all right, it's like, if they can do it, I can do it. If they can have it, I can have it. It was, why does that person have that? Oh, it was ugly, like really, really ugly. It was jealousy and just this rancor that shocked me to my core, right? And I just said, well, I guess there's a layer to my shadow I didn't know existed. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, I was not even disappointed. I was shocked that I had these emotions and feelings. So then, as the day went on, I continued to feel worse. And I'm like, I'm not okay. Solar plexus was going crazy. My tailbone started burning. So I contact a girlfriend who does the work I do. And I said, I don't know what's wrong with me. I'm not okay. Immediately she comes back and she goes, who did you piss off? And I said, what? And she said, there is a woman in your field and it's nasty. She said, I've never seen anything like it. So, and I'm like, I gave her a list of 4 names. And the one that got really mad at me on Facebook was in there. Well, she immediately picked that one out. And she's like, I'm going to get her out of your field. And thankfully I had a myofascia session that afternoon already scheduled. If you haven't done myofascia, I recommend it highly. That and cranial sacral is like the gift of the gods with these energies. So I had a session and I'm working with her and I kind of filled her in. My root chakra was completely blocked, which is why my tailbone was burning. And as she's working, she goes, "Did you take in all these emotions as yours?" Yes, I did. I thought it was another layer to my shadow. I thought there was something I needed to see. And she goes, "You have to ask if it's yours." Because what has happened, the minute I said, "Oh, wow, that's really ugly and it's mine," is the moment I allowed it further into my form and I took it into my cells. So the lesson I have for that is, while it's great to be triggered, when you're feeling things in your body, find out if it's yours. Just ask, "Is this mine?" And feel in your heart what the answer is. And if it's not, just say, "Thank you so much for showing me. You can go now." And just, you don't have to go, "Oh, I'm being cyclically attacked." Just tell it to leave. Just tell it to leave. And that can even be something as simple as you go into the grocery store and you get cranky all of a sudden. Just going, "Is this crankiness mine? Or am I feeling what a lot of people might be feeling in here?" And if it's, you hear, "Nope, not yours," and you just feel like, "No, it's not mine," just say, "Okay, thank you for showing me how others are feeling," and just let it go. Let it pass through, instead of doing what I did, which was claiming it. I claimed it as mine. Because really, it knocked me for a loop. I've never had such a difficult experience as that. It was a really long day. But that's because I had taken in not only something that wasn't mine, but it didn't match frequency wise. So it physically hurt.
It's interesting too, because your body talks to you, it manifests these,
Mhm.
patterns that are in the mind or in the emotional field or somewhere else. And so asking that is important, because it's also important to know what's speaking through you. Is it that ego voice? Is it the fear part of you?
Yes.
Or is it that true guidance, and deciphering that as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. So anything else that you want to share about this moment?
Well, in this moment, one of the reasons people are so afraid, there's a lot of fear out there, is we've been here energetically before. There is a lot coming back in that is remnant to Atlantis. And so a lot of these past life memories are really, they're being triggered within people. And so it's that fear of, is the world getting ready to like shift and shatter out of existence? Are we in for a huge economic fall? What are we here for? Like what is coming for us? And so one of the things that they're saying is also tap into that. Not only asking any emotions that you're feeling, is it mine? But when you are feeling something, going, is this lifetime? Or is this something I'm needing to say, "I know, I see you, I feel you, I know this was hard, but we're here, we're now, and we are safe." And really working with yourself that way. I mean, sometimes I talk to myself as if I'm 5. Like I'm a 5-year-old who just woke up from a nightmare, going, "You're all right. You're okay. You're going to make it through this. This is why you're feeling this way." And it does help. It helps a lot. They have assured me 9 ways to Sunday that we are not in for an extinction level event on this planet again, that we are moving forward. Collectively, we're moving forward. And I know that can be so hard to fathom with everything that we're seeing, hearing, things like that. But understand that that is part of the great shakeup, that this is the time that our closets are opened, our skeletons are revealed. And it's that, that moment where we're all getting really raw, really, really real. And we need to, because unless we do that, then it's only the surface clean. It's the clean water in the aquarium, clean glass, and a bunch of muck on the bottom. And we don't want that again. We want actual cleanliness. We want the purity to come in. And it's funny because they had said to me, they said, "It's time for the filter to do its job." And so when you think about an aquarium, it takes the water and the filter catches things, but things have to be stirred up in order for the filter to be able to do that. And so really look at that. But one of the big things that is happening with the Atlantean lifetimes is the fear of stepping into our full power. So whatever that looks like for you. And so there's a lot of squashing of people happening. There's a lot of people going, I really can't say, I can't speak my mind because holy cow, who knows what the reaction is going to be? Look what happened when I posted an article on Facebook. Look what the reaction's going to be. But it's also like we're looking at it and going, what did this also bring up for me? So for me, it was not only the fact that I was very willing to accept that there was something within me that was not nice. So that's that worthiness piece that, will pop its head back up every now and then. But it's also going, there's something here to this. There's something here about the fear of me going, I don't know if I'm posting on Facebook anymore about stuff like that. I'm just going to post pictures of the grandkids and call it a day. And that it goes back to the Atlantean time of being silenced, of being squashed, of being persecuted. Well, not just Atlantean, but that was the big one. That was the big one for most of us, because that was the lifetime where we were in power. We were in our own personal sovereignty, and it didn't go right. And so it's funny because we have this belief system that, okay, if I'm completely empowered, if I'm embodied, and I am walking in my purpose, everything in the world should be right. Well, everything in your world may flow and go really great, but you're not responsible for what the rest of the people in their shakeup.
Yeah. And you don't have the right to take that away from them, right?
You don't. You don't. Right. So, it's very, very fascinating. And so they did explain, I want you to think of a slinky. I actually meant to bring it here as an example, and then I forgot to get it from my youngest. So I have 20 somethings and an 11-year-old because I'm crazy. And so this slinky, when you think about an outstretched slinky with all of its rings, I want you to think about that as all of your past lives. And so what's happening is we're condensing the slinky. And so we're bringing all of that home. We're bringing all of that, and we're processing the fears that we may feel, the anger, the frustration. That's that muck on the bottom of our personal aquarium. So it's being stirred up so that we can collapse it. And so in quantum physics, they really talk about like collapsing that wave of energy so that it no longer has to be out there flowing endlessly, because now we can bring all that energy back in because we need it. We need it. So even if you sit here and right now you just start calling back all of your energy, just saying, I call back all my energy that I have given away or left behind through all space and time, dimensions, realities, and worlds, and breathe it in. You'll be surprised at how much energy you're like, oh, holy cow, I didn't know I had that much out there. Yeah. But we do. But it's the time to call it all home. Call it home, clean it, and make sure that we're solid and whole in who we are. And the more solid and whole that we are here, the more our multidimensionality kicks in.
Yes.
Because we have the energy to do that. Yeah, so that's really where we are. We're in this massive, massive, massive shakeup. Yeah. And I will also say, unplug if you can.
Yeah.
Because if I look at my little world, and even through the clients that I see and some of their traumas and things like that, it isn't anything compared to what's on the news.
Yeah.
It's not. You know? I mean, I'm not seeing that much meanness.
Yeah.
I'm really not. So it's honing everything and doing what is in front of me right now. Who can I assist right now? Not do for them, but who can I, if your wings are shredded, I can give you a piece of fruit.
Yeah. I love it.
But that's where we're at. What is in front of you? Because if you're reaching too far, it's almost like you're bringing in realities that are not yours.
Yeah.
And you'll feel it. It doesn't match. It doesn't match what your resonance is. And then it brings in a lot of disharmony.
Mhm.
And it brings in more fear in the body. And then the body will start going, I don't know what's going on. And the adrenals start pumping, and then it just spirals. So pay attention to what your reality is right here, right now, today, with the people that you talk to, what the sky looks like, what nature's telling you. What does that tell you? Because I think that you'll often find you go outside and you connect in with nature, you connect in with the trees. Yeah, there's some craziness and some dysfunction, but there's also a ton of excitement,
Yeah.
a ton of excitement, because there's big changes.
Yeah.
So
Ooh,
it's exciting.
fantastic. It is. It's exciting. And if you are, like Jenny was saying, if you are in a situation where you're constantly in a situation where you're faced with some of these more traumatic experiences that are happening, you can unplug mentally,
Yeah.
physically, emotionally, energetically.
Yeah.
You can make some decisions for yourself, like you did. You said, okay, I have to step into my path regardless of what it means. And maybe that
Yeah.
means it's time to move physically or to change relationships, whatever it is. But it's all going to lead to something wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, I think that we have this, I know I had it, the belief that, well, if I'm aligned, then things should always be easy.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. No. No.
No, no,
No,
no.
not
Yeah,
at all. It's very much, can you shift your perception
exactly.
about things? And by shifting the perception, shift the duration that something is uncomfortable. You know what I mean? That's where, I don't know, it feels like we're just being tested in many ways. Can we walk in the mastery that we have earned? And I mean earned through all of these lifetimes, through all of these experiences.
Yeah. And because that mastery is the key, because when you said like bringing the slinky into one more solid place, it's like taking each of those lives, touching each other and having a clear communion, not just for communication, but first usually to see the pain, the fear, the vow, the contract, the whatever pattern that you brought into this life that was creating some of the struggle. But then I call it panning for gold, to take out the skills, the wisdom, the knowledge
Yes.
that life had and start to co-create from this vast amount and this worthlessness, like you talk about. I've had self-esteem issues my whole life almost, a lot of people, I'm not good enough, there's not enough, all of
Sure.
that. This is one of the reasons that it's the conditioning, but also this feeling that there's these other lives way out there. And yet now it's like there's this enormous you with
Yes.
all of these skills. Some part of me knows what to do, right? Some
Yes.
part of me is going to take care of this in this moment, regardless of what happens.
Well, what I've come to understand is my human doesn't know anything.
Yeah.
And so a lot of times if I get into that, like a spin, if I'm like, oh, I don't know what I'm gonna do about this, I'm like, I don't need to know. I don't need to know what to do with this. My human, this, the one that's like right here, like up front, doesn't always know. But the one that is really in there, she's got it.
Yeah.
She's got it.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Well, good. So tell us about your free gift. I know it's a daily meditation
Yeah.
and you brought in some amazing energies to incorporate in it. So share a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it's a meditation. It's a daily meditation to help you like balance and clear and ground your energies. Super, super, super important right now. And then what we did was we brought in frequencies behind it of certain crystals. So it was onyx and clear quartz, which is my absolute favorite. And then selenite, which is a clearing crystal that doesn't ever have to be cleared. And then we embedded under it binary beats. So attuned to 33, which is, really sacred number. And it helps you to get into the Christ consciousness and work into that crystalline grid. And one of the things that they have shared recently is that the crystalline grid is actually the Christ aligned grid. And Christ isn't necessarily, the Christ frequency is not a person, but rather a frequency held by a person. And because of that, we can all hold it and we can all connect in with that grid and infuse our entire body with it. And so my hope is that people use that it helps bring them some peace through these times. It helps them to connect in to that grid and feel supported and held by the universe, because you are. You are. We may not always see it, may not always feel it, but at the end of the day, we are.
Yeah, perfect. And what's your website? Where can people find you? And we'll have all of these things, links for it for you below and in emails and on special pages, but share your website so people can look you up.
It's jennyschiltz.com, and that's SCHILTZ.com. And I do hold a monthly inner circle, and it's where I get together and I talk about the latest stuff with the Galactic Council and what they're sharing. And a lot of times I include exercises for what people can do to help themselves shift through this incredible time with a little bit more ease and grace. So if people are interested, please join in on that. I have a lot of fun doing that. It's a lot of fun.
Thank you. Well, thank you. Thank you for who you are willing to be, for being willing to go through your own ups and downs, and for being willing to say, I have to be who I am, and for finally sharing that with everyone. I know we're all blessed because of it. I know every person that awakens just a little bit brings us up a little higher, makes this a little bit easier and faster. And so I've just loved our time together.
No, this is so nice. I appreciate the container you've created and the energy that you're holding. I appreciate this.
Oh, thanks.
Thank you so much.
So is there anything else you'd like to leave us with before we close?
Just that I know at the end of the day, we are on a positive trajectory. And even though it looks crazy and it's uncertain, especially in America, we've got the elections coming up and it just feels volatile. Drop into your heart. Leave the mind behind. Drop in right here and feel the truth. And the truth is that we're actually okay. We are okay. And we are going to be going on this absolutely amazing journey that we're going to look back and we're going to go, wow, do you remember that year? But look at the changes that came out of it. Look at the growth that came out of it. When you're in it, it's hard to see that. One thing that the council had said recently was, if every person could look back 5 years, just do 5 years, you could even do just a year, and pay attention to how much you've changed, how much you've grown, how much your belief systems may have been changed, been shattered, whatever that is, how much you have shifted your reactions. It's so much easier for us to look backwards and to see what was in order for us to see forward. But if you can look back and go, wow, you know what? If that had happened to me 3 years ago, I would have lost it. Yeah. And now here I am. I'm okay. I'm not happy that this happened, but I'm okay. I'm all right. That right there is that growth. And sometimes we can't see it when we're in it. And so one thing the council says, get people looking. Get them looking at what they've accomplished thus far. And once you realize how much we have accomplished, not only individually, but even collectively, you'll see that we're unstoppable. We're unstoppable.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you,
Absolutely.
sweetie. Wonderful. Well, thank you everyone for joining us. And I know you're going to leave this call feeling very inspired and motivated with lots of things running around. So make sure that you listen again and take really good notes, because there was really profound things in there. And drink in Jenny's energy. The whole idea that, when you're around certain people or in certain places, that you get dragged down. Well, it's true the other way around. And so these are recorded, and the beautiful thing with digital recording is it captures the essence and energy of the person and the subject. So you get to breathe this in. This is encoded into this beautiful recording, and you can just receive that. I would just play this again to hear you saying, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Like that beautiful, loving energy and holding you. So,
Yeah.
wonderful. Take this out into your day with every breath and every step. Remember, I'm okay. I'm on my path. And feel that sense
Yeah.
that there is this beauty and guidance all around you, right?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right. Thanks, everyone. Namaste. Have a
Namaste.
beautiful and blessed day. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.